there, storytellers. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 21 of Bookmas. I misspoke yesterday, but it's okay. I'm back on track. I know what a calendar is. I figured it out. But today's video is going to be 10 activities to make your winter more bookish. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know if you celebrate Christmas or not, but for me, I find it really easy to try to be bookish around the holidays because I want to read holiday novels and I want to bake cookies that are inspired by those holiday novels and I want to watch movies that are inspired by holiday novels. You know what I mean? I just want to do all the cozy Christmas book vibes, but sooner or later, the holidays end and for many people, winter does not. So I thought I would come up with 10 bookish activities to do to sort of keep the magic of the holidays alive, but without being holiday specific so that you can make your winter more bookish. But anyway, without any further ado, let's get into this. Activity number 1 is host a book-themed dinner party. And for me, the easiest one that would come to mind would be a Lord of the Rings / Hobbit inspired one because those books are full of food and they are great for inspiration for something like that. Or Alice in Wonderland also comes to mind. You could do like a tea party. I guess it doesn't have to be a dinner party, but you could host a bookish meal party, a bookish brunch, and you can pick books that either have specific dishes to inspire different ones, or maybe, like I said, with like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, you could have one inspire an entire meal. But I think hosting a bookish dinner gathering or food gathering of any sort is a great way to bring your friends together, especially because you might not have had time to see them before the holidays. A lot of people get busy and they don't get to see their friends as much because they're trying to prep and then they spend time with family. So a bookish dinner party is a great way to spend time with those people that maybe you didn't get to see before the holiday, but you'd really like to not, have missing from your life for several months while you sequester yourself away in the winter. Or is that just me? Suggestion number 2 is host a bookish game night. Again, this is something you could kind of combine with activity number 1, but you could also do it separate because maybe you don't have the time to commit to such a big event, or maybe you did a bookish brunch and you didn't want to do board games, you wanted to host a board game later on. So I think a bookish board game would be the way to go. Obviously, there are different board games inspired by books. For example, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit have their own board games. I'm just going to keep promoting them. It's fine. But there are also different bookish games you can play. You could do a version of like a bookish 20 questions where someone is a character and they know who they are and everybody else has to ask questions to try to figure out who they are. Or you could do a sort of headbands version where they can't see which character they are and they're the ones asking the questions to try to figure out who they are. Or there is a game called Bring Your Own Book, which, if I understand it correctly, you actually physically bring your own book and then you try to find quotes within that book to meet the different prompts. And then I think you try to figure out who's the best one. But it's kind of like almost like a bookish Cards Against Humanity, but not like quite so raunchy. But anyway, I'll have that linked down in the description below if you're interested in learning more about that game and having it explained better than I just did. Activity number 3 is one you can do literally anytime, but especially good in the winter. It's spend the day reading and then watch the adaptation. And there are so many options for this. I mean, obviously, Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, there's Pride and Prejudice. What else we have? We have Percy Jackson. I know the movies aren't great, but they're technically there. We have The Shadowhunters. We have a ton of Stephen King novels. I'm trying to think of who else has been adapted. You could read an Arthurian retelling and watch any of the Arthurian adaptations because there's a ton. What else? There's literally so many. There's obviously these ones, which, maybe you can tell. She Who Must Not Be Named wrote them. But there's plenty. So pick a book that interests you that has an adaptation. Spend the day reading it. Make sure you do it on a day off. Don't do it while you're at work. And then cozy up and watch the adaptation and just enjoy the bookish vibes. Activity number 4 is great for going into the new year, actually. It is starting some bookish rituals. And this can be anything from like drinking a certain tea when you sit down to read, or lighting a certain candle, or, scheduling certain times into your day to read, or, if you like to sit there and read news about books, you can do that, or spending some time listening to a bookish podcast, just create rituals in your life that make it easy for it to be bookish every day. And I think it's great for the new year coming up, just because a lot of us wish we felt more bookish, especially because sometimes you get in a reading slump and you aren't physically reading, but you want your life to reflect your love of reading. You want it to feel bookish. So I think having other sort of non-reading specific but still bookish rituals kind of helps keep those vibes going. Activity number 5 might not be for everyone, but it is start some bookish social media for yourself. And for this, you could really kind of be as wide-ranging as you want. There's Book Talk, Book Twitter, Bookstagram, BookTube. Welcome, you're watching it. There's Facebook pages dedicated to readers. You can just have a Goodreads or some other kind of reading tracking app. It's technically social media because you can often add friends, so you're technically being bookish and social. But really, I think having something like that kind of helps keep you in the bookish world, even if you're not reading. Again, it kind of goes with bookish rituals, but starting a bookish social media is a great way to sort of express your thoughts to the greater book community about novels, or share the ones you're excited to read or not excited to read, and the ones you liked and didn't, and all that good stuff. You know how it works at this point, probably. Activity number 6 is for those of us who are often homebound for whatever reason, and that is planning your dream bookish vacation. Whether it be, this is the location I want to visit and these are the books I want to read while I'm there, or if you want to get more specific and say, these are the bookish locations that I want to visit and why. It can be bookstores, it can be locations that helped inspire your favorite novels, or locations that, the adaptations were filmed at. You can really make it super bookish. And you can find bookish cafes, all the good stuff. But I think having sort of a dream bookish vacation, just to even help your mind mentally escape the slog that is sometimes winter, is just a great mental exercise, but also a great way to maybe set a goal. Maybe, you're going to plan this trip and you're actually going to want to go on it, like really, really, really want to go on it. And you're going to say, you know what, if I achieve X, Y, Z, then I'm going to go on this trip as a reward. And that's a great way to help motivate yourself. It wouldn't work for someone like me, I can tell you that. It's too far in the future for it to be a reward for me of any sort. But if it works for you, I highly recommend it. But also, I think, just like I said, it's a great mental exercise for yourself. Activity 7 is attend a bookish event at your local library or local bookstore, whether you do it in person or virtually if they offer that option. Again, I think it's a great way to be involved in the book community and keep your life bookish without necessarily having to read. Obviously, you could join a book club in that sense. You could join it at a local bookstore or the library, but that tends to put pressure on you to read, and sometimes you just can't. So attending a book talk, like an author talk, I think would be a great way to keep your life bookish without necessarily putting the pressure on you. Activity number 8 is do a bookish puzzle while listening to an audiobook. Obviously, this might not be for you if you really, really, really don't like audiobooks. Maybe, I don't know, you'd have to put on a bookish film or whatever it is you like to do while you do puzzles. I guess bookish craft while listening to an audiobook is a more widely appealing option, but I do think bookish puzzles are great because you're not necessarily worried about the outcome. You're obviously trying to build the picture, but you don't have to worry about creating that outcome yourself like you do with a craft. With a craft, it can get kind of stressful if it's not going the way you want, and that'll take you out of your audiobook. But I think just a bookish puzzle that you can kind of mindlessly put together, nothing too complicated, while listening to an audiobook is a great way to kind of zen out but stay bookish and get a little reading done in the process. Activity number 9 is put on a bookish playlist and pretend you're the main character in a novel as you go about your day. And this one is kind of a great way to romanticize your life. I would recommend Spotify, actually. Even on a free trial. The only thing is the ads take me out of it, but if they don't bother you, all the more power to you. But I do recommend Spotify. There's tons of bookish inspired playlists, great for either reading or, like I said, going about your day is what I would recommend. It's just listening to it while you cook or clean or write letters to somebody or journal, or even while you're reading. Like, I think it's just a great way to make your life feel a little bit more special. You can't do it every single day, you don't have time, but if you have a day off and you just really want to pamper yourself and make the experience kind of multi-sensory in a way that's more appealing than just the getting barraged with like lights and sounds and social media all the time, I would highly recommend it. I would also like to personally recommend Concerning Hobbits as a song with which to start your day. It is the jolliest but like also most peaceful song I've ever heard, and it never fails to make me smile, and it just makes me want to start the day in a good mood. So highly recommend that one. And last but not least, activity number 10 to keep your mind sharp is watch a bookish TED Talk and to learn something new. You could learn something about the publishing industry, something about art on books, the history of a certain book, the history of an author, whatever else there is to know, the history of language. You can kind of just be broad ranging in your interests and go with a bookish TED Talk that supports those interests. And I think it's a great way to kind of keep your mind snappy, because it's easy to get dragged down and kind of slow in the winter. And I think if you're not into reading at the moment, like you want to be, but you just can't, I think a bookish TED Talk is a great way to kind of get your mind stimulated and thinking about things again, and maybe it will inspire you to pick up a book. But that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by leaving a like down below. And if you have any suggestions for bookish activities that aren't necessarily reading, then suggest those down in the comments as well, because I need all the help I can get keeping my winter sort of bookish and fun. It's easy to get sort of dragged down and sad about the winter at some point because it just won't end. And so I'm working on trying to sort of almost romanticize the winter and say these are all the fun bookish things I can do without having to go outside, without the weather being an issue. It's stuff I can do at home with no trouble. So if you have other suggestions, do let me know. But for now, I'm going to get going. If you want to keep up with me and all of my bookish adventures, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button. And of course, I absolutely highly recommend that you ring the little bell so that you don't miss a beat, because it will notify you every time I post a new video, which in the month of December, for like 4 more days, is going to be 425 whole days every single day. So I will see you guys tomorrow with a new one. Bye!